Good morning. We are here today to talk about beekeeping and why it is important. I'd like to start off with a little bit of video that we took last year after we extracted some honey out of our hives. What you're seeing is bees cleaning up their own equipment after we've taken the honey. They're picking up the residual and they're going to carry it home and put it back in their hives. It is commonly said that 1 in 3 bites of food on your plate are produced through the work of honeybees. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ryan Willett, and I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about why it's important to keep bees. First of all, I'd like to talk a little bit about how I came to be a beekeeper. Back in 2009, while I was deployed, I was watching a documentary on AFN, which is Armed Forces Network, and they had a documentary on the life of a bee, honeybee, inside the colony. And through this documentary, the narrator introduced me to some new concepts that I'd never seen or heard of before about a honeybee, because to me a bee was a bee. What he introduced to me was their ability to communicate and how intricate that level of communication was. They do a bee dance, which communicates to all of the other bees in the hive the exact location of food up to 3 miles away from the hive. 3 miles, that's a long way. Some of the other things that they communicate are the health of the hive, how much food they have, how much pollen they have, if the queen is actually in good standing, whether she's healthy and producing eggs on a regular basis like she's supposed to. And they do all of this communication through the work of pheromones, which is kind of a really complex subject that we won't go too far into today. Honeybees fascinated me with their ability to communicate, but also with the way they function inside their hives. From the moment that they're born, they all have different roles that they pass through at different points of their life. Some are custodians, some are guards, some are foragers, and some are nursemaids that take care of the brood while they're being reared. Early man started interacting with bees as early as 15,000 years ago. And there's some cave paintings that we found in Spain on the walls that depict cavemen climbing trees and removing honeycomb from the trees. And you can see this on the left of the image below. And some of the other things that we have found were in the tombs of pharaohs in Egypt. We have found sealed canisters containing honey that is still good, it's still edible, 2,000 years later. And the picture that you see below is a hieroglyph. It's a hieroglyph of an actual keeper in Cairo, found on the wall of one of the tombs. Today, it's more common for urban people to keep bees than it is for farmers or cavemen or anybody else. And the most common group of people, or the fastest growing percentage of people to keep bees today, are women. Somewhere between the ages of 25 and 35, women in urban environments, begin keeping bees. And this number is growing very, very rapidly, especially in North America. Traditionally, men held the role of beekeepers, and here in North Carolina, that number is, the ratio is about 2 men for every woman, I'm sorry. However, that number is very quickly becoming upset, and women are taking the leading role. There are about 13,000 beekeepers in the state of North Carolina as of right now. And this information is provided to us by the State Beekeeping Association. And every spring, that number will increase just a little bit. There's a gain and loss every year, but every year that number goes up just a little bit because more and more people are understanding exactly how important the honeybee is to our world. Excuse me. The honeybee is an extremely important economic engine for us. They provide a lot of different qualities for us. They provide honey, they provide pollen, they provide pollination, some propolis, which is kind of like a sealant for the hive, but it also has medicinal values for us. But they also produce between $15 and $20 billion a year in economic revenue. And this revenue is an extremely important factor for the agricultural industry. One of the oddities that you'll find is that municipalities, municipal organizations, city councils, county councils, and things like that recognize the importance of beekeeping, and they have made it legal to keep bees inside the city limits. So it makes it very easy for hobbyist beekeepers to have one inside the backyard of their house, inside the city limits. Interestingly enough, in the place that I live, just inside the city limits, or just inside the city limits, you can keep a beehive or even multiple beehives because there's no regulation on how many or where they have to be, but you can't keep chickens. Chickens are not allowed inside the municipality, but you can have all the beehives you want. So that shows the faith and the level of importance that my municipality puts in beekeeping. A lot of people are scared of bees or what they perceive to be a bee. And I think this is a misunderstanding based on lack of identification. Anything that flies to a lot of people is actually considered a bee, and that's not true. You have hornets, you have wasps, you have yellow jackets, and you have bees. There are two types of bees. One is native to North America, which is the bumblebee, and the other, which is an import, which is the honeybee. There's German bees, there's Italian bees, Russian bees, Carnolians, but all of them are imported. None of those are native. The bumbler is actually the only native pollinator here. With that said, the difference between the two, as easily identified, is the wasp and the hornet and the yellow jacket all have a hard exoskeleton, where their skin is a hard material. Bumblebees and honeybees are hairy and very, very soft to the touch. Honeybees and bumblebees have very short wings, which allow them to carry a lot of payload very quickly. Wasp and hornets have wings that are almost the length of their body. So a quick look at any one of them flying or sitting, you can identify whether it's friend or foe by the length of the wings, or if the body is hairy or hard. Some of the other things that I think are misunderstood or not fully understood is the type of products that we get from bees. Bees give us honey, which is probably one of the most favorite parts, but they also deliver pollination for us. They pollinate over 150 different types of crops worldwide. Many of them, I bet, are your favorite fruits and vegetables. Wax is used in a variety of products, such as soaps, lip balms, candles, and furniture polish. Pollen and propolis are considered to be of medicinal value for the body. Pollen helps the body deal with allergies and other pathogens like that come about different times of the year. And propolis, as we discussed, being kind of like a sealant for the hive, actually has an antiseptic value to it as well. If you were to pack it in a wound, it would help you keep that wound clean and bacteria-free so that it could heal much faster. This list here is just a few of the items that are pollinated by bees. You'll find some of your favorite fruits and vegetables on that list, I think, if you look closely enough. Very common ones are, in California, are almonds and avocados. In Florida, you have blueberries, strawberries, and oranges. You also have tangerines. Some of the common trees are like maple trees. They require pollination so that they can produce their, propagate and thus produce more syrup. Cotton requires pollination as well. The original soybean or any kind of vegetable crop like cucumbers, pumpkins, watermelons, cantaloupes, tomatoes, all of these require pollination. These are all wonderful things to eat, especially when pollinated. These images are kind of a collage that I put together. In the upper left, you can see some honey as it's being extracted from one of my hives. And in the middle, you'll see pallets of boxes. These boxes are stacked outside of the almond groves in California, and this is a commercial style of beekeeping. They'll truck these pallets in on an 18-wheeler, set them down at a specific interval inside the orchards, and allow these bees to work and pollinate those trees in order to produce almonds for the world to purchase. In the upper right is the act of a bee pollinating. You can see the yellow patch on its back leg. That is known as a pollen bag. And the bees will push pollen down into this bag and then pull their leg up and kind of crunch it down in there to compress the pollen so they can carry more on them. Sometimes they'll actually roll in it and coat their body in pollen and haul that back as well. In the lower left, you can see a bar of beeswax. The wax gets melted down, cleaned and condensed, and then it's sold in bars like that so that it can be used in other products. Like I said, lip balms, soaps, candles, things like that. You can see also the two yellow piles. One is propolis and the other is pollen. They look very similar, but nonetheless, there they are. They have different functions in the world. Here are a few more products that are produced, and some of these I've already covered. As I've said, honey and raw honeycomb. Some people like to actually have the wax with the honey itself, and they purchase raw honeycomb. In that list or in that photo, you'll also see some honey sticks. You'll see a bottle of pollen. You'll see soaps, lip balms, hand lotions, furniture polish, and candles. For everything that bees do for us, they're not doing well in our world. They are fading very, very quickly. There's a variety of reasons that this is happening. Some are invasive species that are persistent pests that have come in from other countries, like the small hive beetle and the varroa mite. The mite is actually like a tick that embeds itself on the back of the bee. And the the small hive beetle is a very tenacious little beetle that takes up residence inside the hive, and its larva will work its way through the honeycomb, destroying the honey reserves, thus running the bees out of the hive. The wax moth is a native pest to these hives, and the wax moth produces a small worm, a small larva, that crawls through the wax and devours the wax. That's actually what they live on. And then once they are ready to pupate, they'll drop out of the hive into the ground, and they'll grow into a moth and repeat the cycle. But this also will cause the bees to abandon their hive if they become overrun with these larvae. One of the last ones, and probably the most important and controversial, is the colony collapse disorder. Colony collapse disorder is still relatively not understood. It has the effect of an entire colony of bees abandoning the hive for apparently no reason. They'll leave food stores behind, they will leave brood in the chambers and in the cells, and they will just leave. And the theory is that there is a family of pesticides known as neonicotinoids that affect the navigation ability of the bees. And the foragers will leave the hive, their ability to return using their internal GPS is affected, and they never come back. And out of desperation, more and more bees leave the hive looking for food and resources and just don't return. Eventually, the entire hive will abscond, and they'll leave and just abandon it. So commercial beekeepers are losing as much as 60% of their hives, and this can literally be 1,000 beehives a year disappearing completely. And this is an extremely important subject for us to research and understand, because we are losing bees so rapidly, and they do play such an important role in our world. So unless hobby beekeepers step in and small-scale commercial beekeepers step in, the feral colonies that are out there living in trees and under stones or whatever, mainly living in trees and logs, these colonies will cease to exist because of these persistent pests, and they'll also cease to exist because of colony collapse disorder. However, with very careful attention from beekeepers, we can maintain the health of the bees and stabilize their population. I'd like to thank you for your time this morning, and I hope you have all learned something. Have a great day.